In February of 1959, a Soviet search team found a tent on a mountainside in the Ural Mountains. It had been cut open. Not from the outside, from the inside, slashed through the canvas wall, as if something inside had been more afraid of staying than of the -30-degree night outside. 9 hikers had been sleeping in that tent. All 9 were gone. It would take rescuers 3 months to find them all. And when they did, what they found didn't make sense. Missing eyes, a missing tongue, crushed ribs with no bruising on the skin, as if the bodies had been hit by something with the force of a car crash, without ever being touched. The Soviet government investigated. Then they closed the case in 5 weeks, sealed the files, and stamped the cause of death as, and I want you to remember this phrase, a compelling unknown force. 65 years later, we still don't fully agree on what happened on that mountain. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. To understand how strange this case is, you have to understand who these people were. This wasn't a group of careless tourists. They were some of the most experienced winter hikers in the Soviet Union. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, a radio engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute, known for being meticulous. He didn't take risks he hadn't calculated first. He assembled a team of 9, 7 men, 2 women, almost all university students or graduates, all certified at the second highest hiking grade in the Soviet system. This trip, a trek across the northern Urals to a peak called Mount Otorten, would earn them the highest certification available. They knew the cold. They knew the mountains. This was not their first winter expedition. On January 23, 1959, the group boarded a train out of Sverdlovsk. 10 of them started the journey, but one, Yuri Yudin, developed knee and back pain a few days in and turned back. That single decision saved his life. He had no way of knowing it would be the last time he saw any of his friends alive. The remaining 9 pushed on. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Rustem Slobodin, Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonishenko, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov, the oldest of the group at 38. For a war veteran who'd joined almost last minute, they planned to send a telegram when they reached the nearby settlement of Vijay, confirming they were safe. After that, they'd be off the grid for weeks, deep in uninhabited wilderness. That telegram never came. By February 20th, when the group still hadn't checked in, friends and family pushed for a search. It took days to organize. Soviet military and police were eventually brought in. Search planes flew over the route. Ground teams moved in on skis. On February 26th, they found the tent. It was on the slope of a mountain called Kholat Syakhl. In the local Mansi language, the indigenous people of that region, the name translates to something the searchers would only learn later and wish they hadn't. Dead Mountain. The tent was still pitched. Skis were stacked outside as a makeshift entrance marker, the way experienced hikers do it. Supplies, food, boots, warm clothing were left behind inside. Untouched, but the tent itself had been cut open from the inside in multiple places, as if someone or something needed everyone out immediately, and didn't have time to find the zipper. Footprints led away from the tent, down the slope, toward a forest more than a kilometer away. The footprints were strange. Some belonged to people wearing only socks. Some were barefoot. In -30-degree weather at night, on a mountainside, these experienced hikers had fled their shelter without coats, without proper boots, and they had not turned back. Search dogs followed the trail down toward the tree line. That's when they found the first 2. Under a large cedar tree near the forest edge, searchers found the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. Both were in nothing but their underwear. The remains of a small fire were nearby, branches broken off low on the tree, as if someone had climbed up to look for something in the dark or to look for a way out. Krivonishenko's hands were burned. Researchers would later note it didn't look like the kind of burn from a struggle to survive. A fire. It looked more like someone who could no longer feel pain reaching directly into the flames, a short distance up the slope. Searchers found 3 more: Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. Their bodies were positioned as if they had been trying to climb back up toward the tent, back towards safety, and simply hadn't made it. Dyatlov was found gripping a small birch branch, as though it was the last thing he reached for. 5 bodies, 4 still missing. Official cause of death for these 5: hypothermia. Tragic, but at this point still explainable. Experienced hikers caught in a terrible decision in a brutal storm. Then it took until May for the snow to melt enough to find the rest. The final 4 were discovered in a ravine under several meters of snow, near a small frozen creek, far deeper into the forest than the others, and this is where the story stops. Being a tragedy, and starts being something searchers couldn't explain. Nikolai Thibaut Brignol had a major skull fracture. Semyon Zolotaryov and Lyudmila Dubinina both had massive chest fractures, the kind of internal damage you'd associate with a high-speed car crash. And yet there was no external bruising on their skin. Whatever force crushed their ribs hit them with enormous pressure but didn't break the surface. And then there was Dubinina, 21 years old, found in the creek missing her tongue, her eyes, her lips, and part of the facial tissue around her face. For decades, this single detail fueled the most disturbing theories about Dyatlov Pass, because at first glance it looks deliberate. It looks like something done to her, not something that happened to her. When investigators tested the clothing the last 4 were wearing, they found something else nobody expected: elevated levels of radiation, no outside party, no footprints leading to or from the area other than the hiker's own. No struggle, no sign of an attack. Soviet investigators searched for any indication that someone else had been on that mountain that night. They found nothing. The lead investigator on the case, Lev Ivanov, closed the file in just over a month. The official ruling: death caused by a compelling natural force, that's it. That was the entire legal explanation for 9 deaths: multiple skull and chest fractures, missing tissue, and radioactive clothing. The files were sealed and sent to a secret archive. The case wasn't reopened for decades. Here's what makes that worse. In 1990, more than 30 years later, Ivanov finally spoke publicly about the case and admitted his team genuinely had no rational explanation. He said that some of his investigators reported seeing strange glowing spheres in the night sky near the mountain during the search. He claimed he was ordered by regional officials to leave those reports out of the official file entirely. Whether those orders came because the Soviet military didn't want questions about secret weapons testing in the area, or because the government simply didn't want a public mystery on its hands during the Cold War, we don't know. What we do know is that for over 30 years, the Soviet government had every incentive to make this story disappear, and very little incentive to tell the truth. That gap between what was officially said and what investigators privately believed is, exactly the space where 6 decades of theories have lived. Over the decades, people have proposed almost everything to explain Dyatlov Pass. Theory 1, a Soviet military weapons test gone wrong. The radiation on the clothing, the reported lights in the sky, the secrecy of the investigation. To some, this all points to a cover-up of a classified experiment. Theory 2, an attack by the indigenous Mansi people whose hunting grounds bordered the area. This theory was taken seriously early in the investigation, until searchers found no footprints, no signs of struggle, and no motive. It was eventually dismissed, but not before doing damage to a community that had nothing to do with it. Theory 3, infrasound, a phenomenon where wind moving across a mountain ridge in a specific shape can generate a low-frequency sound wave, below human hearing, but capable of triggering panic. nausea and a desperate urge to flee. Some researchers believe this could explain why 9 experienced hikers would abandon a warm tent in the middle of a freezing night, in their socks without grabbing their coats. Theory 4, and the one that's gained the most traction with actual physicists, is an avalanche. Not a dramatic Hollywood-style wall of snow, but something called a slab avalanche. A slower-moving but immensely heavy block of compacted snow that breaks loose and slides downhill. In 2021, 2 Swiss scientists ran computer simulations using updated terrain modeling and found that a slab avalanche on that exact slope, in those exact conditions, could generate enough blunt force, pressure to cause crush injuries to the ribs and skull without leaving external wounds, and would explain why the group cut their way out of the tent, in a panic rather than risk. Wasting seconds finding the door, it's the most scientifically supported explanation today. The Russian government's own 2019-2020 reinvestigation reached the same conclusion. But here's the part that keeps this story alive. Even now, a slab avalanche doesn't explain everything. It doesn't fully explain the missing tongue and eyes, and though forensic experts have noted that small scavenging, animals and several months of decomposition in flowing creek water could account for that. However unsettling it is to hear, it doesn't explain the lights in the sky that multiple separate search teams reported independently, and it doesn't change the fact that for over 30 years, the people whose job it was to find the truth chose silence instead. Today, the spot where the tent once stood is marked by a small memorial. The pass itself was officially renamed Dyatlov Pass, after the young leader who never made it home. Every year, hikers still travel to that same stretch of the Ural Mountains. Most go to pay respect. Some go hoping to understand. A few, if you believe the local stories, say the wind through that valley still doesn't sound quite right. We may never know with certainty what made 9 experienced, capable people cut their way out of their own shelter and run barefoot into a freezing night they had no way of surviving. What we do know is this: something on that mountain frightened them more than the cold itself, and 65 years later, it still hasn't told us what.